The February wind cut through my wool coat like it wasn't there. I stood outside La Perla, watching crystal chandeliers glow through floor-to-ceiling windows, and wondered if the universe enjoyed irony. Inside, champagne cost more than my rent. Outside, I counted euros and prayed my phone wouldn't ring. It rang. I pressed it to my ear, shifting my weight on aching feet. "Obachan, I'm at work. Can I call you back in?" "Mio-chan," her voice trembled. "The doctors want to move me. They say the treatment here isn't enough." My chest tightened. "What do they recommend?" "Switzerland, a specialist, but the cost." She trailed off, and I heard everything she didn't say. I closed my eyes against the cold. "I'll figure it out, I promise." Through the window, I watched the evening manager gesture frantically. My break had stretched too long. I ended the call, pocketed the phone, and pushed through the heavy door into warmth that smelled of expensive perfume and old money. The dining room hummed with multilingual conversation. I slipped between tables, invisible in my black uniform, refilling water glasses and clearing plates. This was my skill, becoming wallpaper while the wealthy pretended I didn't exist. Then the VIP section's energy shifted. A man entered flanked by two others. The host's spine straightened. The sommelier actually bowed. Every server suddenly found reasons to orbit his table, though none approached without permission. I studied him while pretending not to. Mid-30s, tailored charcoal suit that moved like liquid, dark hair swept back from a face that belonged in a Renaissance painting, if Renaissance paintings occasionally suggested violence. He sat with the stillness of someone who'd learned that movement meant revealing intention. "Table 12 needs clearing." Marco, the evening manager, materialized at my elbow. "The VIP section." I glanced at the man's table. "I thought Alessandro handles VIP." "Alessandro's sick. You're up." Marco's expression suggested this wasn't negotiable. I gathered my tray and approached, keeping my eyes respectfully lowered. European power plays required careful choreography. I reached for an empty appetizer plate. "Leave it." The voice was quiet, accented, not Italian, though his Italian was flawless. "The presentation interests me." I froze, hand hovering. "Of course, signor." One of his companions leaned in, whispering something that made the corners of the man's mouth tighten. Not quite a smile, more like acknowledgement of a move in a game I couldn't see. My phone buzzed in my pocket once, twice, 3 times. Emergency pattern, grandmother. The man's eyes flicked to my pocket, then my face. For the first time, someone at table 12 actually looked at me. His gaze was dark, assessing, and impossibly sharp. "You should answer that, not a suggestion." "I'm working, signor. It can wait." "Can it?" He leaned back, and something in his posture suggested he already knew the answer. The phone buzzed again. My professionalism cracked. "Excuse me." I turned toward the kitchen, but his voice followed. "The private office, second door past the bar, use it." I stopped. "Signor, I couldn't." "You can." He gestured to one of his men who materialized a key. "Take the call, we'll wait." The key felt like a test in my palm. I fled to the office, closed the door, and answered. "Obachan." "Mio." Her voice was fainter now. "I didn't want to worry you, but the pain is getting worse. They want to admit me tonight." I switched to Japanese without thinking. "Which hospital? Have they called the specialist Dr. Yamamoto recommended?" "They can't reach him, and the cost." "Mio-chan, I don't want you to sacrifice." "Stop, you're my only family. Let me handle this." We talked through logistics until my grandmother's breathing settled. I promised to come after my shift, to bring her favorite tea, to not worry. The lies we tell the people we love. When I returned to the dining room, table 12 was empty. No, not empty. The man sat alone now, his companions vanished. A cup of espresso steamed before him, untouched. He watched me cross the room with the intensity of someone solving an equation. Better, he asked when I reached his table. Yes, thank you for your kindness. Kindness? He repeated the word like it was foreign. Your grandmother. I stiffened. How did you? You spoke Japanese. The tone was familial. The concern was obvious. He gestured to the empty chair. Sit. I'm working. The owner won't mind. His smile was slight, dangerous. I am the owner. The floor shifted beneath me. This man owned La Perla, which meant he owned considerably more than a restaurant. The rumors about La Perla's real business were whispered in staff rooms, never proven, carefully ignored. I didn't sit, then I should get back to work. Mio Tanaka. He said my name like he'd known it forever. 26. Moved to Milan 3 years ago after your grandmother's diagnosis. Work 3 jobs, send most of your money home, live in a building that should be condemned. He sipped his espresso. You're fluent in Japanese, English, Italian, and based on your university records before you dropped out, you were studying Mandarin. My pulse hammered. Are you threatening me? I'm offering you a choice. He set down the cup with precision. I need a translator, someone discreet, intelligent, who understands that some conversations never happened. The pay would cover your grandmother's treatment. Switzerland, the specialist, full care. What kind of conversations? The kind that require fluency in languages and subtext. His eyes never left mine. I don't need to tell you my business exists in gray spaces, but I never hurt innocents and I pay debts. Why me? Because 30 minutes ago you were invisible, now you're not. He stood, withdrew a card from his jacket. The address is on the back. Tomorrow noon. Bring your passport and questions. I'll provide answers. And if I don't come, then you'll work 3 jobs until your body gives out, your grandmother will die in pain, and I'll find another translator. He buttoned his jacket with calm finality. But you'll come. He walked toward the exit, his presence receding like weather. At the door, he paused without turning back. Kiyoshi, he said, the syllables perfect. My name is Kiyoshi Nakamura. Your grandmother knew my father. Then he was gone, leaving me standing in the warm dining room, holding a business card that felt like a key to a door I'd never wanted to open. I turned the card over. An address in Milano's most exclusive district. No company name, just coordinates. Marco appeared looking pale. Is everything all right? I don't know, I said honestly. But I pocketed the card. I spent the night at the hospital, holding grandmother's hand while machines beeped and nurses whispered. She slept fitfully, her breathing labored. The night doctor spoke of palliative options, of making her comfortable, not of cures. At dawn, I walked home through empty streets. The card in my pocket felt heavier with each step. I pulled it out under a streetlight, studied the address. I could throw it away. Pretend last night never happened. My phone showed 17 missed calls from bill collectors. I thought about Kiyoshi's eyes, how they'd seen through me like I was glass. I thought about my grandmother's breathing, each exhale a little harder than the last. At 11:30, I stood in front of my apartment's cracked mirror, smoothing my best interview outfit. The skirt was 3 years old. The blouse had a nearly invisible mend on the cuff. I looked like exactly what I was, someone desperate enough to walk into the gray spaces. The address led to a building that whispered old money. Marble lobby, discreet security, the kind of elevator that moved like silk. I gave my name to the guard, half expecting him to laugh. He nodded. Top floor, you're expected. The elevator opened directly into a penthouse apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed Milan like a painting. Minimalist furniture, all clean lines and expensive simplicity. A woman in a perfect suit appeared. Ms. Tanaka, I'm Alina, Mr. Nakamura's assistant. Her Italian carried a Tuscan accent. He's finishing a call. May I offer you coffee? Thank you. She poured from a machine that probably cost more than my car if I'd had a car. The coffee was perfect. Everything here was perfect, curated, intentional. Mio. Kiyoshi emerged from a side office, dressed more casually now, dark jeans, black shirt, but the aura of controlled power remained. You came. You knew I would. I hoped, he gestured toward a sitting area, Elena the folder. She produced a leather portfolio, set it on the glass coffee table between us, and vanished with the discretion of someone who'd perfected the art of not seeing. Kiyoshi sat across from me, elbows on knees, fingers steepled. The terms. You'll accompany me to business meetings requiring translation. Japanese primarily, though your other languages will prove useful. You'll live here, safer that way, and you'll need to be available. Elena will handle logistics. You'll sign documents swearing discretion. For how long? 6 months minimum. After that, we renegotiate or part ways. And my grandmother. He opened the folder, slid papers across the table. The Swiss specialist flies in tomorrow to consult. If he recommends treatment there, I've arranged a private room at the clinic. Transport, medication, full care. Already paid. My hands shook as I reached for the papers. The numbers were real. The clinic's name was legendary. This is too much. It's proportional. His voice was soft. I need someone I can trust in rooms where trust means survival. Your loyalty to your grandmother tells me what I need to know. You don't know me. I know you answered an emergency call during a shift where getting fired meant losing everything. I know you speak to your grandmother with patience when she repeats herself. I know you haven't eaten a full meal in 3 days because you're rationing. He leaned back. I know enough. What if I see something illegal? You'll see many things that exist in legal gray spaces. My businesses walk the line between legitimate and negotiable, but I don't traffic in human suffering. No drugs to children, no exploitation, no unnecessary violence. His eyes hardened. There are rules even in my world. I looked at the papers, at the promise of my grandmother's survival inked in legal terms. I looked at Kiyoshi, this man who'd bought 6 months of my life with a gift I couldn't refuse. I want to see her before I decide, if she's comfortable, if she approves. Done, the car is waiting. He stood, offering his hand. Come. The Mercedes moved through Milan traffic like water. Kiyoshi sat beside me, close enough that I caught his scent, something expensive with notes of cedar and smoke. He worked on a tablet, fingers moving with decisive efficiency, occasionally speaking rapid Japanese into his phone. At one point, he paused mid-sentence, switched languages seamlessly to Italian, then Mandarin, coordinating something complex across time zones. I watched him manage invisible threads, pulling and releasing with perfect tension. He ended the call, noticed me watching. Logistics. The foundation of power is knowing where everything is. Everything. People, money, leverage, information. He set down the tablet. Your grandmother's doctor mentioned you learned Italian from opera recordings. True. She loved Puccini. We'd listen together. And Japanese. She raised me in Tokyo until I was 12, after my parents died. His expression shifted, something almost like recognition. My father believed family was the only real wealth. Everything else is just numbers. I caught the past tense. He died 6 years ago, liver cancer. Kiyoshi's jaw tightened. He refused treatment, said he'd earned his death. The Mercedes pulled up to the hospital. Kiyoshi didn't move to exit. Before we go in, understand that your grandmother may know who I am, who my father was. If she objects, we walk away. I won't buy your loyalty against her wishes. And if she agrees, then you pack tonight. We leave for Zurich tomorrow. I pushed open the door. Let's find out. Grandmother was awake, more alert than she'd been in weeks. Her eyes tracked Kiyoshi as we entered, and something flickered across her face. Recognition, surprise, calculation. Obachan, this is Kiyoshi Nakamura. He's offered. Nakamura, she spoke the name carefully in Japanese. Your father was Takeshi. Kiyoshi bowed, deep and respectful. Yes, honored grandmother, you knew him. Long ago, before the world broke him. She gestured weakly toward chairs. Sit, both of you. Let me see what I'm agreeing to. For the next hour, Kiyoshi outlined the arrangement in careful Japanese, omitting nothing significant. My grandmother asked sharp questions about my safety, my autonomy, the exit clauses. He answered each with patience, never deflecting. Finally, she turned to me. Mio-chan, do you trust him? I don't know him well enough to trust him, but I believe he honors his word. Good answer. She closed her eyes briefly. His father saved your grandfather once in Tokyo, a debt that was never repaid because Takeshi refused payment. He said some debts were meant to remain open. They reminded us of our humanity. She looked at Kiyoshi. Is that why you're helping? No, he said simply. I'm helping because I need what Mio offers, and I pay fair value. But if my father's debt adds weight to my word, I'll accept that. Grandmother smiled, tired but genuine. Then I give my blessing. But Mia, remember that gratitude and obligation are different things. Take his help, do the work, but never surrender your choice. I won't, Obachin. Good girl, she squeezed my hand. Now go, I need to rest before this Swiss magician arrives. Outside her room, Kiyoshi handed me a phone. New number. The old one isn't secure. Alina's contact is programmed in. Use it for everything. When does my old life end? It already has. He started walking toward the elevator. The car will take you to pack. Bring only what matters. Everything else will be provided. Just like that. He pressed the elevator button, watched the numbers climb. In my experience, hesitation kills more opportunities than failure. You said yes the moment you pocketed my card. We're just catching up to that decision. The elevator arrived. We stepped in, descended toward whatever came next. Thank you, I said quietly. Kiyoshi's reflection in the polished doors met mine. Thank me in 6 months, when you're standing somewhere you couldn't have reached otherwise. The doors opened. He gestured toward the waiting car. Welcome to the gray spaces, Mio Tanaka. Try not to fall through. I packed by moonlight. The apartment that had been my refuge for 3 years suddenly looked like a prison I'd pretended was freedom. Photographs of grandmother went into my bag. The opera recordings. My mother's jade bracelet. Everything else felt like evidence of a smaller life. Alina called at midnight. The morning flight is at 8. Car arrives at 6. Pack light, you'll need different clothes for Zurich and we'll handle that there. Alina, what exactly does Kiyoshi do? A pause. He moves things. Money, goods, people who need moving. He brokers deals between parties who can't meet directly. It's not always legal, but it's never sadistic. Her voice softened. I've worked for him 4 years. He's never lied to me, never asked me to hurt anyone, and when my brother needed an attorney he couldn't afford, Kiyoshi handled it. Make of that what you will. Why do you stay? Because the world isn't divided into good and bad, Mio. It's divided into people who admit what they are and people who pretend. She hung up. I lay awake, watching headlights track across my ceiling. Tomorrow, I would step onto a private plane with a man who existed in shadows. I would become complicit in things I couldn't yet name. But grandmother would breathe easier, and maybe that was enough. At 5:30, I showered, dressed in my best travel clothes, and left the key on the counter. No note. Who would I write to? The Mercedes idled outside. The driver loaded my single suitcase without comment. We drove through pre-dawn Milan, the city still sleeping, unaware that one of its invisible people was vanishing. The private terminal at Malpensa was another world. No lines, no crowds, just hushed efficiency and people who knew not to ask questions. Kiyoshi waited near a sleek jet, talking to a man in pilot's uniform. He saw me, concluded his conversation, and walked over. Today's suit was navy, perfectly tailored, with a tie the color of deep water. Any trouble? He asked. No, it was easy to leave. That usually means it's time. He gestured toward the plane. After you. The jet's interior was minimalist luxury, cream leather, dark wood, seats that looked like they belonged in a Milan showroom. Elena sat near the front, working on a laptop. She nodded greeting without looking up. A flight attendant appeared with the kind of smile that suggested she was paid extremely well to pretend this was normal. Welcome aboard, Ms. Tanaka. We'll be taking off shortly. May I offer you anything? Coffee, please, black. Kiyoshi settled across from me, buckled in with economical movements. We'll land in Zurich in 90 minutes, meet with Dr. Hoffman, assess your grandmother's situation. If he recommends immediate transfer, we arrange transport. If not, we return to Milan and proceed with treatment there. And what do you get out of this? Your competence and loyalty, worth considerably more than medical bills. He accepted espresso from the attendant. Tomorrow night, I have a dinner meeting with Japanese investors considering a property deal. They speak minimal English, trust their Italian even less. You'll translate, observe, tell me afterward what they didn't say. You want me to read subtext? I want you to read everything. Words, silence, body language. In my business, what people don't say often matters more than their promises. The engines hummed to life. I watched Milan shrink below us, felt the tether to my old life stretch and thin. At cruising altitude, the attendant served breakfast, fresh fruit, pastries that melted on the tongue, orange juice that tasted like sunshine. I ate slowly, aware of Kiyoshi watching me with clinical attention. What? I finally asked. You're scared but functioning, that's rare. Most people either fake confidence or collapse. He set down his cup. Elena, show her the briefing materials. Elena brought over a leather folder. Inside were dossiers, photographs, biographical sketches, financial summaries. The Japanese investors Kiyoshi had mentioned. Their backgrounds, their families, their vulnerabilities. Memorize these, Kiyoshi said. Burn nothing to memory that you wouldn't want repeated. I read carefully. The men were wealthy, connected, involved in real estate development across Asia. Between the lines of their official bios ran hints of political connections, strategic marriages, calculated philanthropy. They're not just investors, I said. No one who meets with me is just anything. Kiyoshi leaned back. They want to launder money through Milan properties. I need to determine if they're trustworthy or if they'll bring attention I can't afford. And if they're not trustworthy, then I politely decline and they find another broker. Everyone leaves intact. His eyes met mine. I told you I don't deal in unnecessary violence. Bad for business, worse for sleep. The plane banked slightly. Through the window the Alps appeared, white peaks cutting through clouds like teeth. Almost there, Elena said, not looking up from her laptop. Kiyoshi stood, straightened his jacket. Last chance to back out, Mio. I can have you on a commercial flight back to Milan within 2 hours. No judgment, no consequences. I closed the folder, held his gaze. I'm here, let's save my grandmother. Something flickered in his expression. Approval, maybe, or recognition of a commitment made. Good, he said quietly. Welcome to the deep end. The plane descended into Zurich's precision, and I descended with it, into a life I couldn't yet map. Dr. Hoffman's office occupied the top floor of a building that seemed carved from light. Everything was white, clean, expensive in the way that whispered rather than shouted. The doctor himself was 60, silver-haired, with the calm competence of someone who'd seen every variation of human suffering and developed protocols for each. He reviewed grandmother's scans on a wall-sized screen, occasionally making notes on a tablet. Kiyoshi and I sat in leather chairs that probably cost more than my former rent, waiting. The tumor is aggressive, Hoffman finally said, his English accented but precise. But operable. The challenge is her age and weakened condition. We would need to stabilize her first, 2 weeks of targeted therapy, then surgery, then recovery. Success rate, Kiyoshi asked. 75% she survives surgery. 50% she regains reasonable quality of life. Hoffman set down the tablet. Without intervention, she has perhaps 3 months. With intervention, potentially 5 years. The numbers hit like stones. I had hoped for a miracle. This was just better math. What does she need? I heard myself ask. Transport here by medical flight. Private room in our facility. The treatment protocol I outlined. Post-operative care, potentially including hospice if complications arise. Hoffman's gaze was kind. It's expensive, Ms. Tanaka. I'm ethically obligated to tell you there are more affordable options with nearly comparable outcomes. Price isn't the question, Kiyoshi said. Quality is. Can you give her 5 good years? I can give her the best chance medical science offers. Hoffman turned to me. But you should know, the treatment is aggressive. She'll be in pain. She'll lose her hair again. She might decide the cost outweighs the benefit. She'll fight, I said with certainty. She's not ready to stop. Then I'll arrange admission for next week. My assistant will coordinate with your transport. Hoffman stood, offered his hand to Kiyoshi. Mr. Nakamura, always a pleasure. Doctor, they shook with the familiarity of previous arrangements. Outside in the sterile elevator, I turned to Kiyoshi. You've used him before. Twice, both times he delivered what he promised. The elevator descended. In my world, that makes him rarer than diamonds. Who did you save? Alina's mother, cancer, and a business associate's child, leukemia. His voice was matter of fact. Loyalty is expensive, but betrayal costs more. The Mercedes waited, sleek and black against Zurich's gray afternoon. We climbed in, and the city slid past. Expensive watches in windows, private banks with names like secrets, the kind of wealth that never raised its voice. We'll return to Milan tonight, Kiyoshi said. The dinner is tomorrow at Castello di Rivali. Formal. Elena will provide appropriate clothing. I don't know how to thank you. Then don't. He pulled out his phone, began typing. Gratitude makes people sloppy. Do the job well, that's payment enough. But his hand, resting on the seat between us, was close enough to touch. I noticed his fingers, long, elegant, marked with a thin scar across the knuckles. The hands of someone who'd built things and broken them. At the private terminal, as we boarded for the return flight, Elena pulled me aside. A word of advice, she said quietly. Don't fall for him. I barely know him. Exactly, which makes it easier to imagine he's something he's not. She glanced toward where Kiyoshi stood, talking to the pilot. He's extraordinary at what he does, but what he does requires being extraordinary at compartmentalization. There's Kiyoshi, the careful strategist, and there's whatever he is when he's alone. I'm not sure he knows which one is real. Why are you telling me this? Because I like you, and because you're exactly his type, smart, principled, trapped by circumstances he can solve. Elena's smile was sad. Just remember, rescue and love are different currencies. Don't confuse them. She walked away, leaving me standing in the cold Swiss air, wondering what I'd signed up for. The flight back was quieter. Kiyoshi worked on his tablet, occasionally taking calls in languages that shifted like weather. I pretended to sleep, listening to the engine's hum and my own uncertain thoughts. We landed in Milan after dark. The city glowed with warm light, indifferent to my transformation. Kiyoshi's driver took us not to the penthouse but to a different address, a converted warehouse in a gentrifying district, all exposed brick and industrial windows. You'll stay here, Kiyoshi said as we entered. More private than the penthouse but still secure. Elena's team swept it this morning. The loft was stunning. Open floor plan, minimalist furniture, art on the walls that whispered money. A bedroom with a view of Milan's lights. A kitchen with appliances I didn't recognize. The closet has what you'll need for tomorrow, Kiyoshi said. Alina selected based on your size. If anything doesn't fit, call her. He walked to the door, paused with his hand on the frame. Mio, Alina will have told you not to trust me completely. She's right. Trust is earned, not purchased, but I keep my word and I protect what's mine. His eyes met mine across the room. You're mine for 6 months. That means no one touches you, no one threatens you, and no one makes you uncomfortable without answering to me. I'm not property. No, you're an asset, much more valuable. He smiled slightly. Get some sleep. Tomorrow you enter the world that watches back. Then he was gone, and I was alone in luxury that felt like a beautiful cage. I found the closet. Inside hung dresses in silk and wool, shoes with designer names, jewelry that caught the light like captured stars. Alina had guessed my size perfectly. Everything fit like it had been made for my body. I chose tomorrow's dress, midnight blue, elegant without trying too hard, with a neckline that suggested rather than declared. Matching heels, a delicate necklace with a single pearl. Standing in front of the mirror, I barely recognized myself. The struggling waitress had vanished. In her place stood someone who could walk into Castello di Rivali and belong. I thought about Alina's warning, about Kiyoshi's scar-marked hands, about the way he'd said mine like it was both a promise and a threat. Outside, Milan lived its oblivious life. Inside, I prepared to lie with the truth, to translate not just words but the dangerous spaces between them. My phone buzzed, the new one Kiyoshi had given me. A text from an unknown number, sleep well. Tomorrow we see if you can swim. No signature, none needed. I climbed into bed that cost more than my entire former apartment, pulled silk sheets up to my chin, and tried not to think about the depth of water I'd agreed to tread. But sleep, when it came, was full of grandmother's labored breathing and Kiyoshi's dark eyes watching me across spaces I couldn't name. Alina arrived at 4 with a team that moved with choreographed efficiency. Hair, makeup, final wardrobe check. They transformed me with the clinical precision of people who understood that appearance was armor. The investors are old school, Alina said, directing a stylist's hand. They'll notice everything, your posture, your deference, whether you drink before they do. Watch Kiyoshi, mirror his formality. What if I make a mistake? Then you smile, apologize in perfect Japanese, and learn. She stepped back, assessed. Perfect. You look like you were born to this. I studied my reflection. The woman looking back was elegant, composed, expensive, a perfect fiction. One more thing. Alina produced a small velvet box. Inside lay pearl earrings, lustrous and clearly antique. From Kiyoshi. He said they belonged to his mother. My hands shook taking them. I can't accept these. You can and you will. In his world, gifts are statements. He's telling the investors you're valued, protected. Wear them. I fastened the pearls, felt their weight against my skin. Not heavy, but present. A reminder of whose world I'd entered. The drive to Castello di Rivali took an hour. Kiyoshi sat beside me, immaculate in a black suit with subtle pinstripes, reviewing notes on his tablet. He looked up as we climbed into Torino's hills. Nervous. Terrified. Good, fear keeps you sharp. He pocketed the tablet. Remember, you're not just translating words. Watch Tanaka-san's hands when he touches his wedding ring, he's considering rejection. Watch Ito-san's eyes, if they move right, he's calculating numbers. And Sato-san, the eldest, is the decision maker. The other two defer to him, but he'll pretend otherwise. How do you know all this? Because I study people the way you studied opera. Everyone performs. The trick is learning their tells. He noticed the earrings and something crossed his face, approval mixed with something softer. They suit you. Alina said they were your mother's. She died when I was 12. Car accident, though my father always suspected it wasn't. He looked out the window. She would have liked you. She believed women should be dangerous quietly. Before I could respond, the Castello appeared. medieval stone against twilight sky, windows glowing warm. We pulled up to an entrance where security nodded Kiyoshi through without question. Inside, Baroque grandeur met modern power. Frescoed ceilings, marble floors, contemporary art jarring beautifully against Renaissance architecture. Kiyoshi's hand appeared at the small of my back, guiding me through corridors toward a private dining room. "Stay close," he murmured. "These men are traditional. They'll expect you to be deferential, play the role but listen to everything." The dining room was intimate, a table set for six, overlooking Turin's lights. Three Japanese men rose as we entered, their suits expensive but slightly dated in cut. Traditional power, Kiyoshi had said. I understood now. "Nakamura-san," the eldest, Saito, bowed deeply. Kiyoshi returned the bow with exact calibration of respect. They exchanged greetings in Japanese, the formal phrases that preceded all business. I stood quietly, eyes lowered, the perfect invisible translator. Then Saito glanced at me and his eyes sharpened. He spoke to Kiyoshi in rapid Japanese, and I caught the word for unusual. "My associate, Ms. Tanaka," Kiyoshi responded smoothly. "She'll ensure clarity in our discussions." "Tanaka-san," I bowed. "I'm honored to serve." The surprise on their faces was brief but telling. They'd expected decoration, not competence. We sat, and servers materialized with aperitifs. The investors spoke among themselves in Japanese, apparently assuming privacy. I caught fragments, concerns about Italian financial regulations, questions about Kiyoshi's political connections, crude speculation about my role beyond translation. Kiyoshi's expression never changed, but his foot touched mine under the table. A signal, I'm listening too. Dinner progressed through multiple courses, each more elaborate than the last. Conversation alternated between Italian and Japanese, the investors testing both Kiyoshi's linguistic facility and their own privacy. I translated the Italian to Japanese, occasionally clarifying nuance they'd missed. Halfway through the meal, Ito leaned toward Tanaka, whispered something in Japanese. Tanaka nodded, then addressed Kiyoshi. "Nakamura-san, we're impressed with your discretion, but we need assurance that our investment won't attract unwanted attention." I translated to Italian, keeping my voice neutral. Kiyoshi smiled. "Gentlemen, Milan's financial architecture is designed for exactly this kind of strategic capital placement. The properties I've identified are in zones designated for development, with tax structures that favor international investment. Everything is legal, documented, and clean." I rendered this back to Japanese, watching their faces. Saito's fingers brushed his wine glass rim, a tell Kiyoshi hadn't mentioned. Uncertainty. "The concern," Saito said carefully, "is not legality but visibility. We've heard that European authorities have become aggressive about tracking Asian capital flow." "A legitimate concern," Kiyoshi acknowledged, "which is why we structure through layers: a Luxembourg holding company, a Swiss trust, Italian subsidiary corporations. The beneficial owners remain obscured within legal frameworks." This was the dance, Kiyoshi offering just enough expertise to demonstrate value, the investors probing for weakness. I translated each exchange with precision, adding nothing, removing nothing. But I watched. Tanaka's wedding ring touched twice when discussions turned to timeline. Ito's eyes flickering right during financial projections. And Saito, the sharp patriarch, studying not Kiyoshi but me, as if trying to read what I represented. Dessert arrived, something architectural and sweet. The conversation shifted to culture, art, Milan's opera season. Safer ground. The investors relaxed, their Japanese becoming more colloquial. That's when I heard it. Ito, speaking to Tanaka in low tones, making a crude joke about Kiyoshi keeping a Japanese woman for authenticity. Tanaka laughed. Saito's expression suggested distaste but not surprise. Kiyoshi's hand found mine under the table, squeezed briefly. A signal, let it go. But I filed it away, these men's casual disrespect, their assumption that I was ornamental. Information for later. Coffee digestives, the slow ritual of concluding business. Finally, Sato stood. Nakamura-san, you've given us much to consider. We'll discuss among ourselves and respond within the week. Of course, Kiyoshi Rose bowed. I look forward to a mutually beneficial partnership. More bows, more formal phrases. The investors departed, leaving Kiyoshi and me alone in the dining room with empty glasses and half-truths hanging in the air. He waited until their voices faded completely, then turned to me. What did they say that I didn't hear? I told him, every whispered aside, every unguarded comment. His expression darkened at Ito's joke. Disrespectful, he said quietly, but useful. They revealed more than they intended. Will you work with them? No, Saito is sharp, but Ito is reckless and Tanaka is weak. That combination brings disaster. He stood, offered his hand. You did well tonight, better than well. You read them perfectly. His hand was warm, solid. I let him pull me up, suddenly aware of how close we stood. The earrings, he said softly. Keep them, they're yours now. Kiyoshi, I can't. You can. You wore them into a room full of sharks and emerged unbitten. They're earned. His thumb brushed against my wrist, brief and warm. Come, let's go home. In the car, Milan's lights blurred past. I touched the pearls, felt their smooth weight. Your mother, I said quietly, what was she like? Fierce, quietly fierce, the way avalanches are quiet before they fall. He stared out the window. My father thought he was protecting her by keeping her separate from his work. Instead, he left her vulnerable. When she died, he never forgave himself. Is that why you told me everything up front? No separation between the work and me. Partly, also because you're smarter than pretending would allow. He turned to face me. In my world, ignorance isn't protection, it's liability. The car pulled up to my building. Kiyoshi walked me to the door, his presence solid in the dark. Tomorrow we focus on your grandmother's transfer. The medical flight is arranged for Tuesday. You should be with her. His hand rose as if to touch my face, then dropped. Thank you for tonight. You were remarkable. I was terrified. Yes, but you moved through it with grace. That's courage. He stepped back, restoring professional distance. Sleep well, Mio. I watched him return to the car, watched it merge into Milan's nighttime flow. Inside my loft, I removed the earrings carefully, held them in my palm like captured moons. Alina had warned me about gratitude and rescue, but standing there, I felt something more dangerous stirring, the recognition of a kindred isolation. Kiyoshi and I were both fluent in multiple languages of belonging, native to none. I went to bed wondering which was more perilous, the work I'd agreed to, or the way I'd felt his thumb against my wrist, brief as a promise, warm as a lie I wanted to believe. The next 3 days were operational machinery in motion. Medical transport arranged, paperwork notarized, grandmother stabilized for travel. I spent hours at her bedside, holding her hand while she slept, telling her about Zurich's clean promise. Kiyoshi appeared once, bringing Swiss chocolate and a quiet presence. He sat in the visitor's chair, said nothing, just existed while I pretended not to need the company. My father, he finally said, spent the last month of his life in a room like this. I sat exactly where I'm sitting now, watching him disappear by degrees. Did you talk? At the end, he told me the business was a beautiful trap. It gave us everything except the ability to leave. He made me promise I'd find a door out eventually. Kiyoshi's laugh was bitter. I've been looking for 6 years, still haven't found it. Maybe you're not supposed to find it alone. He looked at me then, really looked, and something passed between us that had no language. Grandmother woke, saw Kiyoshi and smiled. Take she's son, you have his eyes too much seeing. Honored grandmother, he bowed his head. Your granddaughter is doing well. She's doing what's necessary, different thing. Her gaze sharpened. You're keeping her safe. With everything I have. Good, because if you hurt her, I'll haunt you with operatic vengeance. I have Puccini memorized. Despite everything, Kiyoshi laughed, genuine, unguarded. I believe you. Tuesday morning, I rode in the medical helicopter with grandmother. Kiyoshi followed in his jet. We landed on Zurich's Precision, transferred to the clinic's embrace of white and efficiency. Dr. Hoffman met us personally. Mrs. Tanaka, welcome. We'll make you comfortable, and tomorrow we begin. Grandmother squeezed my hand. Mio-chan, don't hover. Go with Kiyoshi. Do your work. I'll be here when you return. I love you, Obachan. I know. Now go live a little. Old women need less attention than you think. Kiyoshi waited in the hallway, phone in hand but attention on me. She's strong. She has to be. She's all I have. Not anymore. The words were simple, but they landed with weight. You have me now, for better or worse, for 6 months minimum. You're not alone anymore. Something in my chest cracked open. I turned away before he could see tears. Come, he said gently. We have dinner with a Swiss banker who's aggressively boring but strategically valuable. You need to eat something, and I need you focused. Back to work. Back to the gray spaces where feeling was liability. The banker was indeed boring, 60 years of caution personified, discussing fiscal responsibility and conservative investment strategies with the passion of someone describing paint drying. But beneath the tedium ran streams of information, political connections, regulatory blind spots, the mechanics of moving money through Switzerland's famous discretion. I translated, observed, noted the moments when the banker's eyes flickered with interest despite his monotone delivery. After dessert, Kiyoshi thanked him, and we emerged into Zurich's cold night. You caught it, Kiyoshi said in the car. The money laundering protocols disguised as compliance advice. Very good. He was offering without offering plausible deniability if I turned out to be compromised. He leaned back, satisfaction evident. You're learning the language beneath language. It's exhausting. Yes, but necessary. In my world, direct communication is for amateurs and traps. He glanced at me. Your grandmother settled in well. Dr. Hoffman says treatment begins tomorrow. Recovery will be slow, but prognosis remains good. You checked on her. Of course, she's my responsibility now through you. His voice softened. You should stay in Zurich this week. Be present during treatment. I'll handle Milan business and return Friday. You're leaving me here. I'm trusting you here. He pulled out his phone, showed me an app. This connects to Alina. Any problem, any concern, she handles it immediately. The clinic has my direct line. You're not abandoned, Mio. You're placed where you're needed most. The car pulled up to a hotel, boutique luxury on Zurich's quiet lakefront. Kiyoshi walked me inside, handed me a room keycard. Top floor, lake view, room service is excellent. He paused and for a moment looked almost uncertain. If you need me for any reason, call, I'll answer. Kiyoshi, I stopped him with a hand on his arm. Thank you for all of this. You've thanked me 3 times now. Stop. But he covered my hand with his, brief and warm. Do the job well, that's all the thanks I need. He left and I rode the elevator to a room with views of Zurich's lights reflecting on dark water. I ordered room service I barely touched, then called the clinic. She's resting comfortably, the night nurse reported. Dr. Hoffman began pre-treatment stabilization. You can visit tomorrow morning. I hung up, stood at the window, and let myself feel the weight of the past week. 7 days ago, I'd been invisible, drowning slowly in a life of minimum wage and medical bills. Now I stood in Swiss luxury, wearing pearl earrings that had belonged to a woman who'd understood quiet danger, working for a man who orchestrated shadow transactions with the precision of a conductor. And somewhere in Milan, That man was probably working still, moving pieces on boards I couldn't see, arranging the world according to logics I was just beginning to understand. My phone buzzed. A text from Kiyoshi's number, sleep. Tomorrow you need to be strong for her. I replied, you too. Three dots appeared, disappeared, reappeared. Finally, I don't sleep well. Haven't since my father died, but I appreciate the thought. Before I could respond, another message. The pearls look better on you than they did in my mother's jewelry box. She would approve of their purpose. I touched my earlobe where I still wore them. Wrote back, tell me about her tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm in Milan. Friday when I return. Over dinner. I'll tell you how she taught me that power without purpose is just noise. It's a date. Immediate response. No, it's compensation for good work. Dinner, stories, company, all part of the arrangement. I smiled despite everything. Of course, professional dinner, understood. Good, now sleep, Mio. That's an order from your temporary employer. Good night, Kiyoshi. He didn't respond, but I imagined him in his Milan penthouse, surrounded by screens and strategies, orchestrating his empire of gray spaces with the lonely precision of someone who'd forgotten how to live outside them. I fell asleep to Zurich's quiet and woke to my grandmother's treatment beginning. The slow, brutal hope of medicine, trying to buy time against mortality's patient certainty. The week passed in hospital rhythms. I sat with grandmother through treatments that left her exhausted and nauseated. I read to her from Italian novels, played Puccini on my phone, held her hand while she dozed. Dr. Hoffman visited daily, adjusting protocols with meticulous attention. She's responding better than projected. Strong constitution. She's had to be, I said. Between treatments, I walked Zurich's orderly streets, learning its geography of wealth and precision. I visited galleries, sat in cafes, pretended to be someone who belonged to this calibrated world. Alina called twice daily, once for business updates, once to check that I was eating and sleeping. Kiyoshi asks after you, she mentioned casually on Wednesday. Wanted to ensure you weren't overwhelmed. Tell him I'm fine. Tell him yourself, he values direct communication. She paused. He's been different this week. More, present somehow, it's odd. Different how? He usually compartmentalizes perfectly. Work is work, personal is non-existent. But he's asked about your grandmother 3 times, called the clinic twice, and actually ate lunch yesterday. That's unprecedented. Alina's voice held amusement. You're disrupting his patterns, Mio. I'm not sure if that's dangerous or healthy. I'm just doing the job. Keep telling yourself that. Thursday evening, grandmother was awake and alert, color returning to her cheeks. You look tired, Mio-chan. I'm fine, Obachan. No, you're worried. About me, about Nakamura, about what you've agreed to. She patted the bed and I sat. Let me tell you something about his father. She was brilliant and brutal, but he understood debts, not monetary debts, but the debts we owe to our choices. When he helped your grandfather, he said, I don't want payment. I want you to remember that kindness compounds like interest, and someday you'll find someone drowning. That's when you pay me back. Kiyoshi isn't Takeshi. No, he's better. Takeshi was too hard, broke himself trying to be unbreakable. Kiyoshi has cracks and he knows it. That makes him dangerous differently. Her eyes were sharp despite exhaustion. He's falling for you, child. Slowly, fighting it, but falling. The question is what you'll do with that. Nothing, this is an arrangement. Everything is an arrangement until it isn't. She closed her eyes. Just remember, rescue and love can coexist, but they need clear names. Don't let him confuse saving you with owning you. That night in my hotel room, I thought about Alina's warning and grandmother's advice. 2 women who understood Kiyoshi better than I did, both cautioning me about something I wasn't even sure I was feeling. My phone buzzed. Kiyoshi, how is she? Better, Dr. Hoffman is pleased. Good, I land tomorrow at 4, dinner at 7. Professional dinner, to discuss the job. Obviously, what else would it be? I could hear the smile in his text. Wear something that isn't hospital casual. We're going somewhere you'll need the armor of elegance. Where? You'll see, trust me. And the thing was, I was beginning to. Against every rational warning, I was beginning to trust him. Not completely, not blindly, but enough that when he said, "Trust me," I didn't immediately calculate the cost. That should have terrified me more than it did. Friday afternoon, I returned to the hotel to find a dress laid out on my bed. Deep emerald silk, elegant and understated, with a card in Kiyoshi's handwriting, foretelling my mother's story. Wear the pearls. K. Elena called minutes later. The dress fits. I haven't tried it, but your track record suggests yes. Where are we going? Kronenhal, old Zurich power where bankers and artists have drunk together for a century. Kiyoshi has stories there. Her voice held warmth. Let him tell them. He doesn't open often, and when he does, it means something. I dressed carefully, the silk whispering against skin, the pearls luminous at my ears. In the mirror, I looked like someone who belonged in rooms where power dined elegantly. The transformation was still startling, how easily we can costume ourselves into different lives. Kiyoshi met me in the lobby at precisely 7. He wore charcoal gray, no tie, shirt open at the collar, less formal than I'd seen him, but somehow more present. His eyes widened slightly, seeing me. "You wear that dress like you understand its language," he said. "Elena chose well." "I chose it, Elena just procured." He offered his arm. "Shall we?" Kronenhal was wood-paneled history, walls covered in original art, Chagall, Miro, Mattis hanging casually above tables where deals were made and secrets traded. The maitre d', greeted Kiyoshi by name, led us to a corner table that somehow felt both public and private. "You come here often?" I asked, settling into a chair that had probably hosted decades of negotiations. "My father brought me here when I was 14, taught me to appreciate good wine and better silence." Kiyoshi ordered in flawless German, then turned attention back to me. "Tell me about this week, the parts you haven't said." So I did. The fear during treatments, the relief when grandmother joked, the strange intimacy of hospital vigils. He listened with complete focus, occasionally asking questions that revealed he'd been following her case more closely than I'd realized. "She called me Tuesday," he admitted over appetizers. "Wanted to ensure I understood that if treatment failed, it wasn't my failure or yours. She said she'd lived full and was making peace." "She told you that, not me." "She was protecting you from having to be strong about it." His smile was gentle. "She's remarkable. I see where you learned resilience." "Tell me about your mother," I said. "You promised." He leaned back, wine glass suspended. "Yuki. Her name meant snow. She was a pianist, not famous, but brilliant. My father heard her play at a private concert, arranged an introduction, courted her with the same strategic patience he used in business." He paused. "She knew what he was, married him anyway. She said some men were beautiful disasters and loving them was a choice you made once, then recommitted to daily." "Did she regret it?" "I think she regretted he kept her separate. She wanted to be his partner, not his protected treasure. Instead, she became his vulnerability." His jaw tightened. "When she died, when she was killed, my father destroyed the people responsible, not dramatically, quietly over years, dismantling them piece by piece. Then he came to me and said, 'This is what happens when you love in our world. Remember it.'" "Did you?" "Every day." His eyes met mine. "It's why I've never allowed myself complications." The word hung between us, complications. I knew what he meant, and I knew we were circling something neither of us had named. "I'm a complication," I said carefully. "Yes, the worst kind, the kind I didn't plan for, that serves a purpose but feels like more." He set down his glass. "I told myself hearing you was strategic. You had skills I needed, circumstances I could help resolve, clean transaction. But then you wore my mother's earrings into that dinner, and you read those men like you'd studied them for years, and something in me recognized something in you. Recognized what? Exile. We're both exiles, fluent in multiple worlds, citizens of none. You pretend to belong by being invisible. I pretend by being inevitable, but we're both pretending. He reached across the table, his hand stopping just short of mine. I'm telling you this because you should know what you're walking into. Not just the job, but the proximity to me. It's not safe. Not for reasons you'd expect. My heart hammered. What kind of not safe? The kind where rescue and need get confused. Where your grandmother gets better, the 6 months end, and I find reasons to extend the arrangement because I've gotten used to you translating not just languages but me. His hand moved forward, covered mine. Where I start calling at midnight because I can't sleep, and you answer because you can't either. Where boundaries blur and suddenly we're something neither of us intended. Kiyoshi. I'm not declaring anything, he said quickly. I'm just being honest about the risk. You can walk away. I'll honor every commitment to your grandmother regardless. You'll leave Zurich with enough money to start over anywhere. No judgment, no consequences. I looked at his hand covering mine, warm, solid, scarred from whatever violence his life required. I thought about Alina's warnings, grandmother's wisdom, the careful distance I should maintain. Then I turned my hand over, laced my fingers with his. I'm not walking away, not yet, maybe not at all. I met his eyes. But I'm also not confused. I know rescue and need aren't the same as love. I know you've orchestrated circumstances that make me dependent. I know this could end with me hurt and hollow. Then why stay? Because I'm tired of being invisible. Because you see me completely, the competence and the fear, the strength and the exhaustion, and you haven't asked me to be smaller or different. I squeezed his hand. And because I think you need someone who can hold your contradictions without trying to resolve them. Someone who won't either worship or flee. Kiyoshi's expression did something I hadn't seen before. It softened completely, unguarded. You're the complication my father warned me about. And you're the beautiful disaster my grandmother told me to see clearly. Are you seeing clearly? I see a man who's brilliant and brutal, lonely and careful, who uses power as protection because vulnerability once cost him everything. I pulled my hand back, needing the space. I see someone who needs exactly what I need, a witness who doesn't flinch. That's accurate, he signaled for more wine. So what do we do with this? We keep the boundaries clear, employer and employee, strategic and professional, but we acknowledge that something else exists in the margins. I accepted the wine refill. We don't lie about it, but we don't act on it. Not yet. Not while the power dynamics are so uneven. When would they be even? When my grandmother is stable. When I've proven I can do this work independently. When I have enough money saved that I could walk away without destroying everything. I raised my glass. 6 months. Then we renegotiate everything. He touched his glass to mine. Deal, professional partnership with acknowledged potential. Potential, I echoed. Safest word we could have chosen. We ate dinner slowly, trading stories about exile and belonging, opera and strategy, the strange mathematics of loyalty. He told me about his father's last words. I told him about learning Italian from my mother's recordings before she died. Over dessert, Kiyoshi pulled out his phone, showed me photos. Young Yuki at a piano, laughing. Takeshi standing behind her, his hands on her shoulders, his face uncharacteristically soft. My father kept exactly 3 photos, Kiyoshi said. This was one. He said reminders of love were dangerous, but forgetting was worse. Do you agree? I used to think remembering was self-sabotage. Now I think forgetting might be. He pocketed the phone. You're changing my mind about things, Mio. I'm not sure if I should thank you or run. Why not both? His laugh was genuine, unforced. Why not both? We left Kronenhall into Zurich's night, walked along the lake without destination. The city was quiet, wealthy, indifferent to our small drama of connection and restraint. Tomorrow I return to Milan, Kiyoshi said as we walked. You should stay here through next week, be present for your grandmother's surgery. After that, when she's stable, come back. We have work. What kind of work? The careful kind. I'm being targeted by a rival, Carlo Rossetti, old Milanese family trying to expand into territories I've controlled for years. He's using regulatory pressure, financial audits, trying to force me into mistakes. Kiyoshi's voice was calm, but I heard the edge beneath. I need you to attend meetings, read subtext, help me stay 3 moves ahead. That sounds dangerous. It is, but you'll be safe, I promise you that. He stopped walking, faced me. Mio, if at any point this becomes too much, the work, the proximity, the complications, you tell me. Immediately, I won't be angry, I'll be grateful for the honesty. I will. Promise me. I promise. He reached up, tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, his fingers brushing the pearl earring. You're wearing them again. They make me feel like I can be who I'm pretending to be. You're not pretending, you're becoming. His hand dropped. Get some rest. Tomorrow your real work begins. He walked me back to the hotel, said goodbye in the lobby with professional distance, but his eyes held everything we weren't saying. In my room, I stood at the window watching Zurich's reflection on dark water, touching the pearls that had belonged to a woman who'd loved a dangerous man and paid the price. But Yuki had also had years of music and partnership and chosen storms. Maybe the cost had been worth it. My phone buzzed. Kiyoshi, thank you for dinner, for honesty, for staying. Thank you for the dress, the stories, the choice. Good night, Mio. Good night, Kiyoshi. I fell asleep thinking about margins and potential, about the space between rescue and love, and whether I was brave enough or foolish enough to eventually collapse that space entirely. Grandmother's surgery was scheduled for Tuesday. I spent Monday preparing, reading consent forms, asking Dr. Hoffman every question I could formulate, sitting with her through preoperative procedures. You're hovering, she said fondly. I'm not going anywhere yet. You can't know that. I know I've got 5 good years in me minimum, too much Puccini left to hear. She squeezed my hand. Go call Nakamura. He's been texting you and you keep not answering. How do you know he's texting me? Because you keep checking your phone with that expression women get when they're trying not to care. She smiled. Call him, Mio-chan. Tell him I'm grateful. Tell him I approve. Tell him whatever you need to say. I stepped into the hallway, dialed Kiyoshi's number. He answered immediately. How is she? Nervous but strong. Surgery is tomorrow at 8. I know, Dr. Hoffman called me an hour ago with updates. A pause. I'm coming to Zurich tonight. I'll be there tomorrow. You don't have to. I know I don't. I'm coming anyway. His voice was firm. You shouldn't be alone for this. And I made a promise to your grandmother that I'd protect you. That includes being present when it matters. Something in my chest unclenched. Thank you. Stop thanking me. But his voice was warm. I'll see you tonight. We'll have dinner, get you away from the hospital, give you space to breathe. Kiyoshi. Yes. I'm glad you're coming. Me too. He hung up, and I stood in the clinical hallway thinking about the difference between what we owe each other and what we choose to give. That evening, Kiyoshi arrived with the efficiency of someone who'd rearranged continents to be present. We ate at a quiet restaurant near the lake, not talking much, just existing in each other's proximity. Scared, he asked over coffee. Terrified, what if she doesn't make it through surgery? Then you'll grieve and I'll be here while you do. But she's strong, the surgeon is excellent, and the statistics are favorable. He reached across the table, took my hand. You can't control this, Mio. You can only endure it. I'm not good at enduring helplessly. No one is, that's why it's hard. His thumb traced circles on my palm, but you don't have to do it alone anymore. We walked back to the hotel together. At my room door, Kiyoshi hesitated. "I'll pick you up at 7 tomorrow. We'll go to the hospital together. You don't have to rearrange your life for this." "I'm not rearranging it, I'm living it differently." He touched my face briefly, almost tenderly. "Sleep, Mio. Tomorrow we face what comes." I wanted to pull him inside, to collapse the distance between employer and employee, between strategic partnership and something else. But I didn't, because grandmother was right. We needed clear names for what was happening, and we didn't have them yet. "Good night, Kiyoshi." "Good night." Surgery the next morning was waiting in surgical waiting rooms always are, endless, anxious, punctuated by medical updates that meant nothing and everything. Kiyoshi sat beside me, working on his tablet occasionally but mostly just present. Silent companionship. Hours passed. Dr. Hoffman finally appeared, still in surgical garb, looking tired but satisfied. The surgery was successful. We removed the tumor completely and initial pathology looks clean. She's in recovery now. You can see her in about an hour. Relief hit like a wave. I started crying before I realized I was going to, and suddenly Kiyoshi's arms were around me, solid and warm, holding me while I shook. "She's okay," he murmured. "Mio, she's okay." I clung to him, propriety dissolving in relief. He let me, his hand steady at my back, his presence an anchor. When I finally pulled away, his shirt was damp with my tears. "I'm sorry." "Don't," he brushed a tear from my cheek. "You held it together for days. You're allowed to break now." "Thank you for being here." "Where else would I be?" He said it like it was obvious, like rearranging his life for my grandmother's surgery was the only logical choice. We saw her in recovery, groggy, pale but alive. She opened her eyes, saw us both, and smiled weakly. "Still here," she whispered. "Still here, Obachan." I took her hand. "Good, don't waste it." Her eyes found Kiyoshi. "Take care of each other, that's an order." "Yes, honored grandmother," he said formally, but I heard the promise beneath. She drifted back to sleep, and we sat vigil until evening. Finally, a nurse shooed us out. "She'll sleep through the night. Go rest. You both look exhausted." In the hospital parking lot, twilight falling, Kiyoshi turned to me. "Come to Milan tomorrow. Bring your grandmother when she's cleared for travel in 2 weeks, but you come now. I need you, and you need something to do besides worry." "Is there really work, or are you just providing distraction?" "Both." His smile was slight. "Carlo Rossetti is escalating. I have a gallery opening tomorrow night. Legitimate business, art investors, but he'll be there. I need you to observe, to catch what I might miss while I'm maintaining appearances." "A gallery opening." "I collect art. It's one of my legitimate businesses, and it provides excellent opportunities for quiet conversations." He unlocked his car. "Come, let's get you back to the hotel. Tomorrow we return to the world that watches." That night, alone in my room, I thought about Kiyoshi's arms around me in the hospital, about the way he'd rearranged his life without question, about the promise he'd made to a woman whose approval clearly mattered to him. Alina had warned me not to confuse rescue with love. But what about when someone showed up, consistently, not just to save you but to witness your survival? I fell asleep wondering if I was still being careful, or if I'd already started falling. Milan welcomed me back with spring rain and the comfortable chaos of a city that never pretended to be orderly. Kiyoshi's driver met me at the airport, delivered me to the loft where my clothes still hung and my space still existed, unchanged despite everything that had changed me. Alina arrived an hour later with coffee and efficiency. "Tomorrow's gallery opening, major event. Clients, collectors, rivals. Rossetti will be there with his people. Your job is to be charming and observant. Kiyoshi will handle the diplomacy. You catch what filters through languages and glances." "What's Rossetti's angle?" "He wants Kiyoshi's import-export business. Claims Kiyoshi's been using it for money laundering and wants regulatory pressure to force a sale. Alina's expression hardened. He's not wrong about the laundering, but everyone does it. He's just being obvious about attacking. Dangerous. Potentially, but Kiyoshi's been doing this longer. He's 3 moves ahead already. She set down her tablet. How are you really? The surgery, Zurich, all of it. I don't know. Grateful, scared, confused about what's happening between Kiyoshi and me. What is happening? We're acknowledging something while not acting on it, maintaining boundaries while admitting they're artificial. Alina studied me. That's either very mature or very delusional. I'm not sure which. Me neither. Well, whatever it is, be careful. Kiyoshi's good at compartments, but when they collapse, the fallout is spectacular. She stood. Rest today. Tomorrow you're back on stage. The gallery opening was in Brera, Milan's arts district, all cobblestones and elegant decay. The gallery itself was modern glass inserted into Renaissance bones, displaying contemporary art that either spoke profound truths or was an emperor's new clothes joke. I could never tell which. I wore black, simple, elegant, the kind of dress that suggested I belonged without demanding attention. The pearls, of course, they'd become my talisman. Kiyoshi appeared in a navy suit, looking like he'd been born to gallery openings. Ready. Define ready. Present, observant, and willing to smile through tedious conversations about artistic merit. He offered his arm. Let's be seen. The opening was exactly what I'd expected. Wine, minimal music, clusters of wealthy people pretending art moved them while actually networking. Kiyoshi moved through the crowd with practiced ease, greeting collectors, discussing pieces with apparent genuine interest. I stayed close, translating occasionally when Japanese buyers appeared, mostly just watching. And I watched him, how he shifted languages seamlessly, how he touched people's elbows to emphasize points, how he made everyone feel like the only person in the room. Then Carlo Rossetti arrived. He was older than Kiyoshi, mid-40s, silver at his temples, expensive suit with slightly too much flash. He commanded attention deliberately, unlike Kiyoshi's effortless gravity. They saw each other across the gallery. Something sharp passed between them, acknowledgement of a game in progress. Rossetti approached with a woman on his arm, tall, severe, beautiful in a calculated way. Nakamura, he said in Italian, supporting the arts as always. Rossetti, I didn't know you appreciated contemporary work. I appreciate investments that appreciate. His eyes flicked to me. And who is your companion? My associate, Ms. Tanaka. She helps me appreciate nuance. Kiyoshi's hand found the small of my back. Mio, this is Carlo Rossetti, an old acquaintance. Acquaintance, Rossetti smiled without warmth. We've been competitors for years, though recently Nakamura's been making unfortunate business decisions that may require intervention. I make careful decisions, Kiyoshi said evenly. Perhaps you're mistaking caution for vulnerability. Perhaps. Rossetti's attention returned to me, and I felt measured, assessed, valued as a piece on whatever board they played. Ms. Tanaka, Japanese, I assume. Yes, I help Mr. Nakamura navigate international clients. How useful. Languages are such valuable currencies. He said something in rapid Japanese, crude, testing whether I'd actually understand. I kept my expression neutral, answered in polite Japanese that acknowledged his comment without giving him satisfaction. Languages reveal as much as they conceal, Rossetti-san. One must be careful what one says, assuming privacy. His expression flickered surprise, then respect. Indeed, Nakamura, you found yourself a competent translator. I know. Kiyoshi's hand pressed slightly more firmly against my back. Now, if you'll excuse us, there's a Basquiat I want Mio to see. We moved away, toward a large canvas of frantic color and meaning, but I felt Rossetti's attention follow us. What did he say? Kiyoshi asked quietly. I told him, the crude assessment, the assumption I wouldn't understand. Typical, he tests everyone. Kiyoshi studied the Basquiat like it held answers. He'll escalate now. He knows you're competent, which makes you a threat. How does a translator threaten him? Because you see everything and I trust your sight, that's power. He turned to face me. Mio, tonight's just reconnaissance, but soon things will move faster. Are you ready? I don't know, but I'm here. That's enough. His hand dropped from my back, restored distance. Come, let's circulate, let people see us, make Rossetti wonder what we're planning. We spent another hour at the gallery, playing the game of being seen. I caught fragments of conversations, deals being made, alliances forming, the careful choreography of power that pretended to be about art. As we left, heading toward Kiyoshi's car, a man materialized from shadows. Young, expensive suit, the energy of someone delivering a message. Mr. Nakamura, Mr. Rossetti requests a meeting. Tomorrow, neutral location, just you and him. Kiyoshi didn't pause. Tell Rossetti I don't meet with people who conduct business through emissaries. If he wants to talk, he can call me directly. He thought you might say that. The man produced a card. When you change your mind. Kiyoshi took it, pocketed it without looking. Unlikely, but thank you for the delivery. In the car, I waited until we were moving before asking, will you meet him? Eventually, but on my terms, my timing. He's trying to force a confrontation. I'll give him a negotiation. Kiyoshi stared out the window. Power is about controlling tempo when things happen, how fast, who initiates. Rossetti's impatient. That's his weakness. What's your weakness? He looked at me then, and something vulnerable flickered across his face. Currently, you. Kiyoshi. I know, we're maintaining boundaries, professional partnership, but he saw how I touched you tonight, how I positioned my body between you and him. He saw protection that goes beyond employee welfare. His jaw tightened. I made you visible as someone who matters to me. That was strategic and stupid. Strategic how? If Rossetti thinks you're leverage, he'll waste resources monitoring you instead of my actual vulnerabilities. You're a decoy, in a sense. And stupid how? Because I actually do care about your safety beyond its strategic value, which means the decoy is also real, which complicates everything. He ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of frustration. I'm usually better at separating these things. Maybe that's good. Maybe caring about people shouldn't be compartmentalized. In my world it should be. Caring creates openings. But he reached across the car, took my hand, though apparently I'm terrible at following my own rules. We rode in silence, hands linked, until the car stopped at my building. Tomorrow, Kiyoshi said, we start strategic planning. Rossetti will move soon, financial audits, regulatory pressure, maybe something more direct. We need to be ready. What do you need from me? Eyes, ears, and honesty. Watch for patterns I might miss. Tell me when I'm making mistakes born from pride or fatigue. He lifted my hand, kissed my knuckles briefly. And stay safe. That's non-negotiable. I will. Promise me. I promise. He released my hand. Good night, Mio. Good night. Inside my loft, I stood at the window watching his car disappear into Milan's night. I touched my knuckles where his lips had been, brief, warm, blurring every boundary we'd agreed to maintain. My phone buzzed. Elena, he kissed your hand, he never does that. What have you done to him? I smiled, typed back, complicated him. Apparently it's mutual. Be careful. When his compartments collapse, the fallout is biblical. I know I'm trying. Try harder, or don't. I honestly can't tell which would be safer. Neither could I. The next week was strategic choreography. Meetings with lawyers, accountants, people who specialized in making money invisible and operations defensible. I sat in conference rooms, translating documents and conversations, watching Kiyoshi build fortifications from legal language and financial structures. Rossetti's going to use the tax police, Kiyoshi explained one evening over takeout in his office. He'll claim my import-export business is primarily laundering. He's not wrong, but proving it requires unwinding complex legitimate operations. I've built 5 years of clean paperwork. Can he actually shut you down? He can make it expensive and visible, force me to either sell cheap or fight publicly. Kiyoshi spread documents across his desk. But I've been preparing for this, moving operations, diversifying, establishing alternative routes. By the time his pressure arrives, there'll be nothing solid to grasp. That's brilliant. That's survival. He looked up, and exhaustion showed around his eyes. In my world, you're always preparing for the next attack. It's tiring. I stood, moved behind his chair, began massaging his shoulders. He stiffened, then slowly relaxed. "This isn't professional," he murmured. "No, it's human. Let me do this." His shoulders were hard with tension, muscles knotted from weeks of stress. I worked them methodically, feeling him gradually soften under my hands. "Thank you," he said quietly. "You take care of everyone. Let someone take care of you." "I'm not good at that." "I've noticed, maybe practice." He laughed, the sound rough but genuine. We stayed like that, me standing behind him, hands on his shoulders, him gradually surrendering to the relief. It was intimate without being romantic, caring without crossing lines. But lines were becoming harder to see. His phone rang, shattering the moment. He answered in rapid Italian, his body tensing again under my hands. The conversation was brief, sharp. He hung up, stood abruptly. "Rossetti just filed complaints with financial regulators. It's starting." "What do we do?" "We execute the plan. Move assets, activate alternative structures, make everything look even more legitimate than it already is." He grabbed his jacket. "Alina's coordinating. I need to meet with my attorney. You should go home, get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be intense." "I can help." "I know, but tonight's work is legal maneuvering, and you need sleep more than you need to watch lawyers argue." He pulled me toward him briefly, kissed my forehead. "Go, that's an order from your employer." Such a romantic employer. "I try." His smile was tired but warm. "Go, Mio." I went, but sleep didn't come easily. I lay in bed thinking about Kiyoshi surrounded by lawyers and documents, fighting battles in conference rooms while pretending he wasn't exhausted and lonely. My phone buzzed at 2 a.m. "Kiyoshi, thank you for earlier, the shoulder thing. I needed that more than I realized." "You need to sleep too." "I will eventually, after I've fortified everything." "You can't fortify against everything." "I can try." I stared at the phone, then called him. He answered immediately. "Mio." "Come here, bring your laptop. Work from the loft. At least you'll be in proximity to someone who's sleeping." A long pause. "That's not a good idea." "Why not?" "Because I'll want to stop working and just be near you, and that's dangerous right now. I need focus." "Then focus in the same room where I'm sleeping. Compromise." I heard my own boldness and didn't care. "Kiyoshi, you're going to burn out if you keep isolating. Come here." Another pause, then, "Give me 20 minutes." He arrived in casual clothes, jeans, black shirt, looking more human than I'd seen him. I let him in, gestured to the dining table. "Work there, I'll be in bed. Don't wake me unless it's urgent." "Mio." "Good night, Kiyoshi." I went to the bedroom, left the door open. From bed, I could see him settling at the table, laptop glowing, papers spreading in organized chaos. Watching him work was oddly comforting. The focus, competence, the slight furrow between his brows, the occasional muttered curse in Japanese. I drifted toward sleep with the quiet sounds of him existing nearby, keyboard clicks, page turns, the occasional phone call in whispered Italian. It felt domestic and safe. This man I barely knew working while I slept, protecting us both from different kinds of darkness. At some point I woke to silence. The laptop was closed. Kiyoshi sat at the table, head in his hands, looking lost. "Hey," I said softly. He looked up startled. "Sorry, did I wake you?" "No, what's wrong?" "Nothing, everything. I'm just tired of playing chess with people's lives." He rubbed his face. "Sometimes I wonder if my father was right. This business is a beautiful trap, and I'm too deep to ever escape." I got out of bed, crossed to him, pulled an extra chair close. "You're not trapped. You've just convinced yourself the walls are higher than they are." "They're pretty high, Mio." "Then we'll climb them eventually together." I took his hand. "But tonight, stop working, come sleep on the couch, let your brain rest." "I shouldn't stay." "You should. You're exhausted and driving would be dangerous. Plus, I sleep better knowing you're not alone in some office, fighting battles until dawn." He studied me with something like wonder. "You care about me." "I do, professionally and otherwise." I squeezed his hand. "Come on, couch, sleep. Everything else can wait until tomorrow." He let me lead him to the couch, accepted the blanket I provided, settled with the kind of surrender that suggested he was too tired to argue. I returned to bed, left both doors open so I could hear him breathing. "Mio," his voice was quiet in the darkness. "Yeah. Thank you for this, for not letting me disappear into work." "You're welcome, now sleep." "Okay." I listened to his breathing slow and deepen, felt the loft settle into peaceful quiet. For the first time since this started, I felt like we'd achieved something real, not strategic, not professional, but human. Two people taking care of each other because that's what you do when you've seen someone's exhaustion and chosen not to look away. I fell asleep thinking about how rescue and love might not be so different after all. They both required showing up, consistently, even when it wasn't convenient or strategic or smart. Morning arrived gently. I woke to find Kiyoshi already awake, sitting at the dining table with coffee, looking less haunted than he had the night before. "You stayed," I said from the bedroom doorway. "You asked me to." He gestured to a second coffee cup. "Figured you'd need this." We sat together in morning light, not talking much, just existing. It felt significant, this quiet domesticity, sharing space without performance. "Rossetti's next move will be public," Kiyoshi finally said. "Probably at some event where I'm visible. He'll want witnesses, pressure, social cost to fighting him." "When?" "This week. There's a charity gala Friday, museum fundraiser, all of Milan's power in one room, perfect stage for confrontation." He sipped his coffee. "I need you there, not to translate but to observe. Watch his people catch what they're planning." "That's dangerous." "Yes, but I'll keep you safe, and we'll have an exit strategy, driver ready, alternative routes, security positioned." His eyes met mine. "I won't let him use you as leverage, Mio. I promise." "What if I am leverage?" "Then we acknowledge it and plan accordingly. But you're not just leverage. You're," he trailed off, searching for words. "You're someone I've come to need in ways I didn't anticipate. That's more dangerous than any business rivalry." "Dangerous how?" "Because it means when I make decisions, I'm thinking about keeping you safe alongside keeping myself safe. My risk calculations have changed." He set down his cup. "My father said once that caring about someone was like giving them a loaded gun and hoping they didn't shoot. I'm starting to understand what he meant." "I'm not going to hurt you, Kiyoshi." "Not intentionally, but proximity to me risks hurting you, which would hurt me. It's complicated." He stood, straightened his shirt. "I should go, meetings all day, but tonight if you want, come to the penthouse. Dinner, planning, making sure we're ready for Friday." "It's a date, professional date, obviously." "Obviously." His smile was warm, though we're getting worse at the professional part. "Maybe that's okay." "Maybe." He moved toward the door, paused. Thank you for last night. I slept better here than I have in months. Same time next week. If we survive Friday, absolutely. After he left, I stood at the window watching Milan wake up. Delivery trucks, early commuters, the city organizing itself for another day. I touched the pearls at my ears and thought about loaded guns and trust, about how caring for someone required surrendering control. Alina called mid-morning. So, he slept at your place. On the couch, he was exhausted. I made him rest. And I'm sure nothing else happened. Nothing else happened. We're being careful. Careful is boring, but also smart. She paused. Mio, Friday's going to be intense. Rossetti's planning something. We've caught whispers through sources. Stay close to Kiyoshi, and if things escalate, leave immediately. Promise me. I promise. Good, because if anything happens to you, Kiyoshi will burn Milan down, and that's bad for everyone's business. Friday arrived with spring rain and the kind of nervous energy that precedes storms. The gala was at the Pinacoteca di Brera, art, wealth, and power colliding under the guise of philanthropy. Alina dressed me in silver, a gown that caught light like water, elegant heels, the pearls and diamond earrings borrowed from Kiyoshi's collection. You look like someone who belongs, she said, adjusting my necklace. That's the armor. Kiyoshi met me at the penthouse, stunning in a black tuxedo that made him look dangerously elegant. Ready. As I'll ever be. Remember, stay visible, stay close, and if I give you the signal, we leave. No arguments. He offered his arm. Let's go charm Milan. The Pinacoteca glowed with careful lighting and careless wealth. Everyone who mattered was there. Politicians, collectors, old money pretending new money didn't exist, new money pretending not to care. Kiyoshi navigated it with practiced ease, greeting people, kissing cheeks, making small talk that revealed nothing. I stayed close, watching, and I saw Rossetti's people, positioned throughout the gallery, not security but observers, waiting for something. They're staged, I whispered to Kiyoshi. I know, the question is what for. He accepted champagne from a passing waiter, handed me a glass. Act normal, let them think we're oblivious. We circulated, viewed art, made appropriate comments, but tension built like pressure before lightning. Then it hit. Financial police arrived, not dramatically but with official authority. They approached Kiyoshi surrounded by witnesses, Milan's power watching. Mr. Nakamura, we need you to accompany us for questioning regarding irregularities in your import business. The gallery went quiet. Every conversation stopped, every eye turned. Kiyoshi's expression never changed. Gentlemen, I'm happy to cooperate. May I see your credentials? They provided documentation. Everything looked legitimate except. This warrant is for questioning, not arrest, I said quietly in Italian. You have no obligation to leave immediately. The lead officer's eyes flicked to me. Who is this? My legal consultant, Kiyoshi lied smoothly. She's correct, isn't she? I can arrange to meet you tomorrow with my attorney present. We'd prefer tonight. I'm sure you would, but unless you're arresting me, I'll exercise my right to prepare properly. He handed back the warrant. Tomorrow, 9 a.m., my attorney's office will cooperate fully. The officer's jaw tightened. This wasn't how Rossetti had scripted it. Public acquiescence would have been better theater. Tomorrow then, but don't leave Milan, Mr. Nakamura. I have no plans to travel. Kiyoshi's voice was ice calm. Now if you'll excuse us, we're supporting the arts. The police left, but damage was done. Everyone had seen. Whispers spread like contagion. Nakamura's in trouble, the authorities are moving. Maybe he's not as untouchable as he seems. Rossetti appeared from the crowd, concern painted on his face. Kiyoshi, if there's anything I can do to help. I'm fine, Carlo, just bureaucratic theater. Kiyoshi's smile was pleasant and deadly. Though I appreciate your concern, it's touching. Of course, we're colleagues after all. Competitors, Kiyoshi corrected gently. Let's not confuse terms. Rossetti's mask slipped briefly, revealing satisfaction beneath. Indeed. Well, I hope everything resolves quickly. It will. I'm thorough about documentation. After Rossetti left, Kiyoshi leaned close. We're leaving now. We made our way toward the exit, maintaining dignity, not fleeing. But at the door, Kiyoshi paused. One more thing. He turned back to the gallery, raised his voice slightly. For those wondering, the questioning is about standard import documentation. Nothing illegal, nothing dramatic. But I appreciate everyone's concern. It's nice to know Milan watches. The statement was perfect, confident without arrogance, dismissive without disrespect. We left on that note. In the car, Kiyoshi's composure cracked slightly. That was closer than I'd like. But you handled it perfectly. Because you caught the warrant's limitation. Thank you. He pulled out his phone, began typing rapidly. I'm moving things faster now. Rossetti won't wait. He'll push while I'm defending this charge. We need to relocate both operations and your grandmother. My grandmother. If he's willing to use police publicly, he might use her privately. She's stable enough to travel. His voice was tight with concern. Dr. Hoffman said maybe next week. We don't have next week. I'll arrange medical transport to a private facility in the Alps. Secure, isolated, excellent care. You'll go with her. Kiyoshi, I can't abandon you. You're not. You're being strategically positioned where Rossetti can't reach you. He took my hand. Mio, he saw how I protected you tonight. He knows you matter. That makes you vulnerable and I won't risk you. What about you? I'll be fine. I've fought this kind of battle before. But his hand tightened on mine. I just need to know you're safe. Can you give me that? I wanted to argue, to insist on staying, to face whatever came together. But I saw the fear beneath his control, not for himself, but for me. Okay, I'll go with grandmother, but you call me every day. And if things escalate, you'll be the first to know. He pulled me against him, brief and fierce. I promise, you and your grandmother safe in the mountains, waiting for me to clean up this mess. And then we renegotiate everything. His lips brushed my hair. Because I'm done pretending I can compartmentalize you. The car delivered us to my building. Kiyoshi walked me up, checked the loft despite knowing it was secure, and finally stood at the door looking like he wanted to say something but couldn't find words. Go, I finally said. Fight your battle. I'll keep your grandmother safe and mine. We'll be waiting when you're done. Mio, he pulled me into a kiss, sudden and hungry and desperate. I kissed back, pouring months of tension and restraint into that moment. His hands cupped my face like I was precious and breakable, his mouth moving against mine with practiced skill and raw need. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. I'm falling for you, he said quietly. Probably already fell, and I have no idea what to do with that. Neither do I, but maybe we figure it out after you've survived this. Deal, one more kiss, brief and sweet. Good night, Mio. I'll call tomorrow with travel arrangements. Good night, Kiyoshi. Don't do anything stupid trying to be heroic. Can't promise that. Heroic stupidity is sort of my specialty. He left, and I stood in my empty loft touching my lips where he'd kissed me, feeling everything shift and settle into new configurations. We'd crossed the line we'd promised not to cross. And somehow, it felt like arriving home rather than making a mistake. Morning brought logistics executed with military precision. Medical transport arranged, grandmother cleared for travel by Dr. Hoffman, paperwork streamlined through channels I didn't understand. By afternoon, we were in a helicopter, Milan shrinking below us, Alps rising ahead. The facility was everything Kiyoshi had promised. A converted mountain shadow, now a private medical retreat for patients who needed both recovery and security. Grandmother settled into a sun-filled room with views of impossible peaks and air that tasted like clean promises. He's thorough, your Nakamura, she said, watching nurses arrange medications with Swiss precision. He's not mine. No, then why did you kiss him? I stared. How did you? You called me last night late. You were happy crying, which you only do when something wonderful and terrifying happens simultaneously. She smiled. Tell me. So I did. The gala, the confrontation, the kiss. Grandmother listened with the attention she'd always given my confessions. He's fallen for you, she said when I finished. And you for him. The question is what you'll do with that knowledge. Survive first, figure out after. Smart, but Mio-chan, remember, love in his world requires accepting you might lose him. Every day, every decision, the possibility of loss. Her eyes were serious. Your grandfather lived in similar shadows. I learned to love him while knowing he might not come home. Are you brave enough for that? I don't know, but I might not have a choice. There's always a choice. That's what makes it love instead of obligation. The days that followed were strange suspension. Grandmother recovering beautifully in mountain air, me reading and walking and waiting for Kiyoshi's daily calls. He sounded increasingly tired but confident. The questioning went nowhere, he told me Wednesday. My documentation is flawless, but Rossetti's trying other angles, business partners, financial audits, regulatory pressure. Death by 1,000 bureaucratic cuts. Can you survive it? I've survived worse, but it's exhausting. A pause. I miss you. Is that allowed? It's allowed. I miss you too. How's your grandmother? Thriving. The altitude suits her. She's already befriended the nursing staff and critiqued their choice of cafeteria music. His laugh was warm through the phone. That sounds perfect. Tell her I'll visit when this settles. When will that be? Soon. Rossetti's getting desperate. Desperate people make mistakes. I'm waiting for his. Another pause. Mio, if things escalate, if I can't call for a few days, don't panic. Alina has instructions to keep you informed. Kiyoshi, you're scaring me. I'm being cautious. There's a difference. His voice softened. I'm coming back to you. That's a promise. We haven't finished our conversation. Which conversation? The one about what we do with falling when we're both done falling. I like that conversation. Me too. So stay safe, heal your grandmother, and wait for me. Can you do that? Yes, but hurry. Mountains are beautiful, but they're also lonely. I know, so is Milan without you in it. He hung up, and I stood at the window watching snow dust the peaks, thinking about falling and promises, and whether love could exist in the spaces between strategic decisions. Thursday, the call didn't come. Friday, silence. Saturday, Alina finally called. He's fine, but he's in the middle of something delicate and communication would compromise it. Trust me, trust him. What's happening? He's turning Rossetti's pressure into leverage, using the visibility Rossetti created to expose his own vulnerabilities. It's brilliant and risky. She paused. He told me to tell you that he's keeping his promise, that he's coming back, and that he's sorry for the silence. I hate this. I know, but you signed up for it when you kissed him. Her voice held sympathy. Love in his world means accepting silences and trusting they're not abandonment. Sunday morning, my phone rang. Kiyoshi's number. Hello. It's done. His voice was rough with exhaustion and relief. Rossetti made his mistake. He tried to force a merger using fabricated evidence. But I'd anticipated it, built a counterfolder showing his own regulatory violations. We met privately, traded leverage, reached understanding. He backs off. I don't expose him. Peace through mutual assured destruction. You're okay. I'm tired and annoyed and missing you, but okay. A pause. Can I come there tomorrow? I need to see you and make sure your grandmother approves of me after everything. She already approves. She's been asking when you'd visit. Tomorrow then. I'll fly up in the morning, spend the day, return Monday. Is that okay? More than okay, Kiyoshi. Yeah. I'm glad you're safe. I'm glad you won. We won. You being safe meant I could take risks I otherwise couldn't. Partnership, remember. Partnership. I smiled through sudden tears. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we finish that conversation. Looking forward to it. He arrived Monday afternoon via helicopter, looking tired but lighter somehow. He brought flowers for grandmother, peonies, her favorite, and sat with her for an hour while I pretended not to eavesdrop from the hallway. Their conversation was in Japanese, formal and warm. I caught fragments, her telling stories about my grandfather, him speaking carefully about his father, both of them acknowledging the weight of debts repaid and cycles broken. Finally, grandmother called me in. Mio-chan, take him walking. Old women need naps and you two need to talk. We walked the mountain trails, spring snow melting into streams that would become rivers. For a while, we said nothing, just breathed altitude and existence. My father, Kiyoshi finally said, died believing he'd trapped me, that the business was a cage I'd never escape. But these last months working with you, seeing how partnership changes calculations, I think maybe he was wrong. Wrong how? Maybe it's not a cage if you're choosing to stay. Maybe it's just a life with all the complexity any life has. He stopped walking, turned to face me. Mio, I want you to stay beyond 6 months, not as an employee, as a partner, in business and, if you want, in whatever else we're becoming. My heart hammered. That's a lot to offer. It's a lot to ask, but I'm done pretending I can separate my life into compartments. I want you in all of them, the work, the recovery, the quiet moments, the dangerous ones. I want to build something that's ours instead of mine. What about the risk, the fact that your world is dangerous? It is, but you've proven you can navigate it, and I've proven I'll protect you while you do. He took my hands. I'm not asking you to sacrifice yourself for me. I'm asking you to choose this life with full knowledge of its costs and possibilities. I looked at him, this man who'd seen me invisible and made me matter, who'd saved my grandmother while teaching me to save myself, who'd kissed me like I was the answer to questions he'd stopped asking. Yes, I said simply, to partnership, to staying, to whatever we're becoming. His smile was unguarded relief. Yes. Yes, with conditions. I want to finish my degree eventually. I want autonomy in decisions. I want us to be equals, not employer and employee. And I want honesty always, even when it's hard. Deal, all of it. Though the equality might be complicated, I have more resources, more experience. But I have different strengths. Translation, observation, keeping you human. We balance differently. I squeezed his hands. Partners don't mean identical, just equally valued. Equally valued. He pulled me close. I can work with that. We kissed there on the mountain trail, snow melt rushing past, Alps witnessing our imperfect promise. It was less desperate than the first kiss, more certain. A beginning instead of a surrender. When we returned to the shade now, grandmother took one look at us and smiled. Finally, I was beginning to think you'd both be too stubborn to admit what was obvious. Obvious? Kiyoshi asked. You've been in love with her since the restaurant. She's been in love with you since you showed up at my hospital bed asking permission. She waved a hand. You're both terrible at hiding it. We were maintaining professional boundaries, I protested. You were torturing yourselves unnecessarily, but you figured it out, so I'm pleased. She looked at Kiyoshi. You'll take care of her. With everything I have. Good, because if you don't, I have enough life left to haunt you properly. I believe you, honored grandmother, he bowed respectfully. Thank you for trusting me with her. I'm trusting you with each other. That's different and harder. She closed her eyes, tired but content. Now leave. I need rest, and you two need to discuss whatever partnership means in practice. We left her sleeping peacefully and walked the Shadehouse Gardens as twilight painted the Alps purple and gold. Partnership in practice, Kiyoshi mused. I suppose that means figuring out where you'll live, what responsibilities you want, how we structure this. I want to keep the loft, my space, but spend time at the penthouse too. I want to work on legitimate business more, less on the gray spaces. And I want time to study, finish my degree, maybe teach languages eventually. All reasonable. I can shift operations toward more legitimate fronts. The gallery, property development, import-export, that's actually just import-export. He looked thoughtful. Rossetti's pressure actually helped. It showed me which parts of the business I could let go without losing power. Maybe transformation instead of reinvention. Toward what? Something my children wouldn't have to escape from. He said it quietly, like he was surprising himself. Children. Eventually, maybe, if he stopped, looked embarrassed. Sorry, too far ahead. No, it's good, thinking past the next crisis. I leaned against him. I like the idea of building something that doesn't need escaping. We stood there as stars emerged, two people who'd found each other through necessity and chosen each other through recognition. The path ahead was uncertain, complicated by his past and my transformation, but it felt possible in ways isolation never had. I should go back tomorrow, Kiyoshi said. Restructure, handle the transition, but I'll return next weekend. And once your grandmother is stable enough, you'll both come to Milan. We'll figure out the rest together. Together, I like that word. Me too, he kissed my temple. Thank you for saying yes, for staying, for complicating my life in the best possible way. Thank you for seeing me, for making space for who I am instead of who you needed me to be. Always Mio, that's the promise. 6 months later, grandmother sat in the alpine sun, stronger than she'd been in years, reading opera criticism and arguing with Dr. Hoffman about musical interpretation. The treatment had worked, not perfectly, but enough. She had years left, maybe many, to listen to Puccini and offer sharp wisdom. I split time between Milan and the mountains, working with Kiyoshi on businesses that increasingly resembled legitimate enterprises. The gallery thrived, property developments progressed, import-export operations streamlined into defensible clarity. We hired Alina as COO, gave her equity and authority to match her competence. Rossetti and Kiyoshi maintained careful peace, competitors who understood that mutual survival beat destructive war. Sometimes they even collaborated on deals too large for either alone. I'd re-enrolled in university, taking classes online while managing translations and observing negotiations. Kiyoshi insisted on supporting my education, framing it as investment in partnership rather than charity. I let him, recognizing that accepting help was its own kind of strength. And slowly, we built a life that felt like choice rather than necessity. Dinners that weren't strategy sessions. Mornings that started with coffee instead of crisis. Evenings when we turned off phones and just existed together. One October night, Kiyoshi found me at the loft's window, watching Milan's lights. "What are you thinking?" he asked, wrapping his arms around me from behind. That a year ago, I was invisible and drowning. Now I'm here with you, building something I didn't know was possible. Regrets? About which part? Any of it, the gray spaces, the compromises, the danger. I turned in his arms, met his eyes. No regrets, some fears, some uncertainty about the future, but no regrets. Good, because I'm about to complicate things further. He pulled a small box from his pocket. Before you panic, this isn't an ultimatum. It's an offer. We've been partners in business. I'm asking if you want to be partners in everything else too. The ring inside was simple, a pearl set in platinum, elegant and understated. Like everything Kiyoshi did, it was perfectly chosen. This is a proposal, I said, somewhat unnecessarily. Yes, is that allowed, given our history? History is just context. The question is future. I looked from the ring to his face, seeing uncertainty beneath his control. Do you promise to keep choosing me, even when it's complicated? To be partners, not rescuer and rescued? I promise. Do you promise to keep complicating me, to refuse to be only what I need instead of who you are, to choose this knowing it will never be simple? I promise. Then yes, hope and vulnerability in his voice. Yes, to partnership, marriage, whatever we're becoming. Yes. He slid the ring on my finger with hands that shook slightly. Kiyoshi, who never shook, trembling because this mattered more than any negotiation. We kissed with the same certainty we'd found on that mountain trail, but deeper now, built on months of choosing each other through complications and crises. Your grandmother will be pleased, he said when we broke apart. She already knows. She's been asking when you get around to asking. Of course she has, he laughed. I should have known I couldn't surprise anyone in your family. That night we called grandmother together. Her response was characteristically Yuki. Finally. I was worried I'd die before seeing this resolved. Now I can rest easy knowing you're both committed to this beautiful mess. Beautiful mess, I echoed after we'd hung up. That's one way to describe our life. Better than organized disaster or controlled chaos, Kiyoshi suggested. Much better. I looked at the ring on my finger catching light. We really did this. We did, no going back now. Who'd want to go back? We stood at the window, watching Milan live its oblivious life. Two people who'd found each other in gray spaces and chosen to build something clear. Love that existed between strategic and spontaneous, rescue and choice, falling and arriving. Outside, the city glowed with possibility. Inside, we held each other with the certainty of partnership earned through complications survived together. From invisible waitress to this, chosen, seen, building a life that was ours. Not simple, never simple, but real and warm and full of the kind of promise that required daily choosing. Behind us, Milan continued its ancient dance of power and beauty, indifferent to our small story of connection. But we'd written ourselves into its margins, carved space where two exiles could belong to each other if not to the city. What do we do now? I asked. Now we live, Kiyoshi said simply. We keep choosing each other. We build businesses and family and legacy. We transform the gray spaces into something we can inhabit with integrity. He kissed my hair. We do what my father never learned. We choose the storm together and make it beautiful. Beautiful storm, I like that. Me too. And in the end, that was enough. Two people, complicated and choosing, building warmth against the cold night Milan offered. Not perfect, never perfect, but ours. Completely, imperfectly, wonderfully ours.